Good evening. Welcome to episode 81 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the comfortable, cool, and fall like conditions of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as well as on Substack. Hopping right into this episode, guys. Episode 81 will be dedicated to the NFL recap of Week 5 and Week 6. Kind of touching on some games in Week 5 that I watched. I kind of took a little bit of a break. The Eagles were off Week 4. Week 5, I kind of recapped their game, recapped some of the games, but I'm going to kind of do it all in a nutshell with this right here in this episode, episode 81. As always, I thank you for the love and support. Hopping right into it, though. I thought it was fitting that I would talk about, in my opinion, the best game of the week. And it was headlined Week 5 and Week 6 by the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if we remember back in Week 5, the Baltimore Ravens had a thriller against the Cincinnati Bengals, AFC North rivalry. The game ended 41-38. Both Lamar was magnificent, completing 24 42 passes, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns. Joe Burrow was also magnificent. Joe Burrow's been killing it this year. 30 of 39, 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. So it was a great game. Great NFC, great AFC, great AFC. I said AFC East. I wish it was the AFC East. AFC North. Excuse me. AFC North affair. It was great to watch. Fantastic to see. It was a great game. But that game being great in itself and watching Baltimore pull that out, it was amazing to see another week, another test. We all knew that the Commanders were coming. We all knew that this was the Beltway battle, the Beltway rivalry between the Ravens and the Commanders. So it was very interesting to see, especially with Jaden Daniels playing having a hot start he's had in the NFC East and the NFC this year, pretty much being the best rookie quarterback playing. It was going to be interesting to see, him being a Heisman winner, Lamar being the MVP, reigning MVP, great matchup. So hopping right into it, it was amazing. It was amazing to watch that Ravens Commanders game because, again, highlighting that the fact that the Ravens had the second best game another week in a row. The game ended 30-23, but that's not the final score. Was not just indicative of how good the game was. It was interesting because the Ravens started off playing a little sloppy early, but Lamar and Jay Daniels kind of just put on a show as we thought they would. Lamar just more or less is playing at an MVP level right now. He was 20 of 26, 323 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but it's the way he's completing the ball, it's the way his decision making, his decisiveness within the pocket. Lamar's just playing at an MVP level. He's probably going to be the MVP again at this rate. Jaden Daniels, his decision making and ability to extend plays is elite. He kept that game. He kept Washington in that game. I mean, without any of that, they would have been blown out. Their defense is atrocious. St. Juice needs to be benched. He's garbage, as far as a corner, so no shock there. But Zay Flowers, again, speaking of St. Juice, torched St. Juice. He was looking good. He had 9 receptions, 132 yards, so great day for Zay Flowers. Derrick Henry playing well again, 24 carries, 132 yards, finally getting him downhill, getting him going within the offense. But I'll be remiss if I didn't bring up how well, again, Jay and Daniels looked, completing 24 of 35 passes, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. And like I said, Washington, their main crux right now is defensively they suck, and their corners are just horrendous. Mike Sansestrill from Michigan has been playing well, but outside of that, a lot to be desired. They're not getting really any great production out of their corners, and it's causing them to suffer. It's really causing them to suffer, and it really sucks, but they definitely played a tight game against the Ravens, but the Ravens also pulled it out. Like I said, Lamar is playing at MVP level right now, and I don't think there's anybody that's going to really be touching him at that level, barring injury or barring unforeseen bad play. He's just playing lights out right now. And again, what I thought was also funny was going back to a Week 5 game, being that we just touched on the Commanders, and I also in a previous episode touched on the Browns and Eagles. So this would be very fitting. I'll bring up this game in Week 5. Browns versus Commanders, which was just a walking atrocity. Jane Daniels got it going early, destroyed the Browns. Deshaun Watson, as he looked in the Philadelphia game, just looked out of sorts. Just, it looks like he needs to be benched. He doesn't look like he has his confidence there. He's not mobile. He's not decisive as he used to be. He just doesn't look good. Doesn't look like the same guy. The Browns' run defense, as we saw, they played a lot better in Philadelphia. They made more of a concerted effort to stop Saquon Barkley in the running game. However, they still suffered because the combination of Jalen, Saquon, and Kenny Gainwell. And in that previous game, the Reds, I almost said the Redskins. The Commanders just did whatever they wanted and just ran the ball down their throat. So credit to the Browns. Credit to the Commanders for being able to run the ball. The Browns pretty much just had a bad run defense all year, and it showed in that game. As also in the Philly game, the Cleveland O-line, which I think Cleveland has been so bad this year. Like, I think injury-wise, they've suffered a lot. And the malignancy of the quarterback play aligned with the innate acknowledgement that he's not really playing good and that they should sit him out, but they're not going to. I don't really understand. I mean, he's played horribly 2 weeks in a row. I mean, in that game, just to give you an idea how bad he was, at halftime, Deshaun Watson, and I'm going to give you Week 5 and Week 6. Week 5 against the Commanders, at halftime, 8 of 18, 67 yards, 0 of 8 on third down. Now, keep this in comparison because I want to make sure I save those notes because I want to let you know how bad he was playing. Because, I mean, you don't really understand in comparison how bad it is until you see it, until you really get a grasp of the numbers. But it was very startling to see how shitty he's played in third down this year. Here we go. Going into it, he had 46 yards by halftime, and they had allowed 5 sacks. In the Philadelphia game, they were 3 of 12 on third down. So again, it just shows you how badly they've been on third down. He's been one of the worst third down quarterbacks, and they've been one of the worst offenses and third down offenses in the league this year. So didn't shock me that they lost that game against the Commanders, and then they lost against Philadelphia. Just bad football, bad offense, and the offensive line can't protect them. He got sacked 5 times against Philadelphia, 6 sacks in total. And Philadelphia had 6 sacks on the season going into that game. Philadelphia was ranked 29th, going in the league in sacks going into that game. So just shows you how bad and shitty the Browns are playing right now. Bad team, bad all around. They need juice. I'm not sure why they're still keeping Deshaun in there. Not sure what the goal is, but if their goal is to eventually break the team up and get rid of guys like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, they should take some of them calls because I don't know really what the game plan is because he's not playing at a high level and he's not playing at a level that should warrant the contract that he's getting. But remember, as reported on this show, all that money is guaranteed. They've reworked his contract, so there's no wiggle room out of it. So, interesting times for Cleveland, and it looks like it's only going to be rough waters ahead. If I'm Nick Chubb, I'm not rushing back for this shit. I'm not. Finishing up some of the Week 5 games, Bears versus Panthers, which wound up being a complete blowout. And this will lead into my Bears thing, so bear with me on this angle. Week 5, like I said, Bears versus Panthers was a complete blowout. DJ Moore in his reunion game destroyed the Panthers. Most complete game the Bears had played up to that point this year. Like I said, I'll touch on their Week 6 performance against the Jaguars. The Panthers still suck, obviously. They're still a bad team, even with Andy Dalton in there. No shock there, but just keep an eye on Bryce Young possibly coming back to play. I know that they've sold that bill of goods that they might try to trade him, but if the offense doesn't really play that much better with Andy Dalton in there, I don't really see how you could really say it's all Bryce Young. So we'll see. Another game that I paid attention to during Week 5 was Rams versus Packers, which was interesting because it wound up starting out as a tight game, but both offenses looked good early. Defenses had kept it close, but ultimately Green Bay had pulled away. Jordan Love showed, too, he has a little Brett Favre in him. I know Colin Cowherd and forget my guy's name, Middlecoff, that commentates with Cowherd. They were kind of more or less saying that you shouldn't really trust Jordan Love. You can't really trust him. He's got that gene in him where he'll kind of throw the game away. I think it's a little unfair. I think he's still a guy kind of on the learning curve, still figuring out the position. So, again, it was a tight game, but Packers with their offense and the defense that the Rams have had the past year or so, just not enough to contend with a team like that. And ultimately, the Packers just put on a late fury and pulled away. But staying within the NFC North, I'm going to get back to the Bears, and I'm going to touch on the Bears in this segment right here. And the Bears, again, playing Jacksonville. Starting off week 5, it was a London game. The early game that Sunday, I was up. I was one of those weirdos that get up early for football, and I'm definitely doing the show. It's one of those things. It's part of the job, so no harm there. But watching the game, like I said, final results of the game with the Bears 35, Jaguars 16. I thought it was interesting though, because watching that whole game, it was a tale of two different teams. With the Bears, you see a team that's kind of playing a little bit better, getting their confidence. Quarterback starting to look a bit more sure of himself. Whereas in Jacksonville, you see a quarterback that looked like he was ready to play and had confidence, but he had receivers that just lost the ability to catch the ball and a defense that just lost the ability to stop the run and stop the pass all at the same time. Bears, like I said, regaining their confidence. Run game with DeAndre Swift is starting to work. He fumbled in that game, which was kind of late, almost could have been disastrous. It kind of could have put Jacksonville back in the game, but it wound up being for naught. You kind of see the ball distribution was there too, connecting with all the receivers and the tight ends. Caleb's starting to find a way to get all the guys influenced within the game, and I think that's going to be tremendous for them, especially if they want to go where they want to go, which is the playoffs, and not be in the doldrums in the basement of the NFC North. The NFC North is loaded this year. It's going to be competition for them, so it's going to be very interesting. But Caleb Williams, like I said, completed 23 or 29 passes. 226 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Played a very good game. DeAndre Swift had 17 carries, 91 yards, 1 touchdown. Cole Kmet, I thought he had a very solid game. 5 receptions, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. And again, I spoke to that ball distribution that the offense has kind of found within these past couple weeks between week 5 and week 6. 23 receptions, 226 yards as a whole, which I think is a good formula for Chicago to sustain success. If they can keep that ball distribution up, that's definitely going to be great for Caleb. It's going to keep the defenses off him and him off not in the grass or on the dirt, and more or less him upright and completing passes downfield to Keenan Allen or DJ Moore or Cole Kmet or DeAndre Swift. And also 4 sacks for the Chicago defense, so that's always a plus. If you're Jacksonville, you got major fucking issues. That O-line and team doesn't play physical. You got the guy Cisco after the game. Link in the description. Comments will be posted here too. You got him talking about guys not playing physical. I counted the drops. They had 4 to 5 drops by receivers. 3 of them were in the red zone. I mean, literally in the fucking red zone, in the end zone. I think it's time for Press Taylor to go. His offense has become very, 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 very predictable, stale, and I don't know if Dougie P has realized, but I think he's kind of mentioned it with the whole culture change thing. Something's got to give, because this team is not only underperforming, but they're playing at such a bad level that it's going to result in him getting fired if nothing turns around. And to go a bit further, Trevor Lawrence, 23 or 35, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, wasn't what Trevor Lawrence was doing. It was more or less what the guys around him were doing. Trevor Etienne fumbling, and like I said, it's rough waters in Jacksonville right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around. If they have heart, if they show fight, maybe, but it might be too little too late, especially if they're stuck with Press Taylor throughout the season. There's no way they're going to be able to right this ship. Staying again also too within the NFC North, happening within the Packers. The Packers had a great game on Sunday playing the Cardinals. Beat the shit out of Arizona. Final score, Packers 34, Cardinals 13. It was interesting because going into the week, we know Romeo Doubs was coming off a suspension. Not sure if it was team-related issues with him getting the ball or deep-seated issues with potential anxiety, mental health. And, we always take things like that seriously, especially here. I battle with anxiety myself, so it's not a laughing matter or anything to sneeze at. But they definitely made sure that when he got back, he was reingratiated back into the offense. He had a good game. 3 receptions, 49 yards. That wasn't really the highlight. He had 2 touchdowns, which I thought was crucial. Jordan Love completed 22 of 32 passes, 258 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Ultimately, the Packers took away the running game from Arizona. They made sure that Arizona had no chance of running the ball, and ultimately ran it down their throat. 38 carries, 179 yards, group effort. Brandon Jacobs had 18 carries for 62 yards. Emmanuel Wilson, 7 carries for 54 yards. So again, love what the Packers are doing with the running back by committee, keeping Jacobs fresh, using Wilson, kind of the change of pace, battering Ram style running backs. I like it. I like what the Packers are doing. Like I said, this is one of the teams I thought and picked to reach the NFC Championship game towards the end of the year. Christian Watson, 3 receptions, 68 yards, had a touchdown. Jaden Reed, 6 receptions, 28 yards, touchdown. And 3 fumble recoveries by the Green Bay defense. Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, I've watched film on them lately. Shout out to Cody Alexander on Substack with some of the film that he's posted. Amazing footage and some of the film that I've watched reviewing on these guys. These guys are playing at another level right now. And the way they're creating turnovers, Packers defense is nothing to be fucked with. They're going to be contending. They're going to be hurting teams late into the year. And I just like what I see right now for how they're putting it together. And let me not mince my words. The Cardinals are not a good football team at all. Rushing attack was non-existent. The Packers completely eliminated that. Their run defense is garbage. Penalties were a major factor. I mean, it cannot stress that. They were penalized 10 or 11 times for 100-plus yards. It was horrible. Defense couldn't hang with Green Bay's offense. And then you had Marvin Harrison Jr. getting a concussion, so that definitely didn't help. But the only highlights really offensively, you had Kyler Murray completing 22 of 32 passes. He had 214 yards for a touchdown. He had Tyler McBride, 8 receptions, 96 yards. But it was a shit show. And ultimately, Green Bay put the hurting on them. And Arizona's just, they're not even close to being in the league of Green Bay. They're not even on the same field, same planet at this point. So very interesting to see how that's all going to play out. But before I go into further the Sunday games, I'd be remiss if I don't talk about the Thursday night football game between 49ers and Seahawks. Hopping right into that here. 49ers and Seahawks. It was a weird game, how everything kind of played out. The 49ers this year, kind of like Philadelphia, some of the other teams, had an issue with starting out slow. They haven't really started out well the way that they wanted to the manner that they wanted to the beginning of the year. That being said, that game was too close for how it started. You had Geno Smith throwing early interceptions, 49ers getting downfield, settling for field goals. And we all know in the NFL, if you're settling for field goals and not scoring touchdowns, you're going to get your ass kicked. Geno looked erratic early, didn't look comfortable. Purdy was connecting, Debo was getting hot. At one point early, if I'm looking here, Geno Smith at one point in the first half was 4 of 9 for 53 yards, and they were already down at that point 13-0. Geno Smith, again, wasn't playing well. And then Jordan Mason, running back, gets injured. And I had him on my ticket last week, so that sucked. But Jordan Mason gets injured. Then they wound up having the rookie Isaac Orendo coming in from Louisville. He played decent, spot duty. It's weird because, again, Metcalf didn't really play well. Defense was really not up to snuff at all. And they were getting San Fran to settle for field goals, which is what you want. If you're playing Kyle Shanahan's offense, playing San Francisco 49ers, you want them settling for field goals instead of touchdowns. So not being able to capitalize on it and the defense surrendering the way they did, it sucked. Literally to start the second half, it was 23-3. So you kind of felt like the game was over. But then 49ers, give up that kick return, kind of let the game lag around, and then before you know it, Seattle was down by 20 points. Before you know it, it's a one-score game. It's 23-17. And then at that point, San Fran just rips off 14 unanswered, kind of breaks the game open. Geno throws another pick, and the game's pretty much out of the way. I have to be honest with you, though. Bear with me. If Seattle has a better quarterback, they beat San Francisco. Hell, if they have better defensive play, they beat San Francisco. If you're San Francisco, you got some things to definitely tighten up. Because, division game, yes, but to be up 23-3 by beginning of the second quarter and to surrender 14 unanswered and then pretty much having to, and then, let's be honest, fucking turnovers. San Fran scored 12 points alone off Seattle turnovers, so that's literally what kept San Fran in the game and what allowed them to take the lead and pretty much supplant them and win the game. So it's rough right now if you're Seattle. Started out hot and kind of fizzled. Don't really know where it's going. And again, they kind of made it a game late. Late touchdown to Tyler Lockett, but Kyle Juszczyk sealing the deal. 49ers, you kind of always felt like they were going to win that game, but it just seemed a lot closer than what it should have been. So credit to them for winning, but it's going to be interesting because it's going to be hard for the 49ers to really kind of put teams away. I just feel like right now a lot of people have film on Kyle Shanahan and what he's doing. It's kind of a lot of duplicating and copycatting going on in the NFL right now. And I just feel like a lot of people kind of know the offense. They kind of know what's coming. So, especially without Christian McCaffrey being there, and I don't believe he may even be back this year. I know they're kind of selling that bill of goods that, the Achilles is fine, we're just going to let him rest. But if he starts running and the Achilles starts aching again, aren't you going to have to sit him down? So, we'll see. Nonetheless, this next segment is going to be touching on the Pittsburgh Steelers and Oakland Raiders. Great old classic AFC rivalry there. And it started out looking like a good old AFC rivalry. Physical game. Looked like it was a nod to the throwback running game and defense. But Justin Fields, decent playing game, efficient football. 14-24. This is like it says here. 14-24. 141 yards for the game. This game was not special. It was not miraculous. It was not amazing in any way. What this game ultimately came down to is that the Raiders shot themselves in the foot multiple times. Multiple times. Between the Raiders' penalties and inability to get off the field on third downs, they actually could have won this game. But being that they played so shitty and you allowed Najee Harris to get loose, you allowed Justin Fields to just eat you up down the field, and then TJ Watt's just a fucking beast, so he gets whatever he wants. So, and the Raiders haven't really answered that quarterback question. The final score of the game, Pittsburgh 32, Raiders 13. Ultimately they have not answered that quarterback question. I don't know what the Raiders are going to do going into the offseason. They're definitely going to have to address it, but as far as the season goes, it's going to be rough for them because without decent quarterback play, you're not going to beat teams like that. Even the Raiders in a game where you pretty much had that game for the taking, where at any point if you get like 2 touchdowns, maybe you win the game, but I don't know. It's going to be rough for the Raiders. Shout out to Pittsburgh, though, for winning the game and sealing the deal. And it kind of looks like this week, Russell Wilson's kind of getting reps. I don't know what that's really about. I don't know if they kind of feel like that Justin Fields is hit his ceiling and he's not really going to do much better, or they got to see what they're going to get out of Russell Wilson. I don't know, but he looks like he's getting burned this week in practice. Looks like he's going to have a chance to start. I'll have an update late in the week, obviously, on if he's going to be starting or not, but, we'll see. This next segment will be touching on the Texans and Patriots. This game wound up being a blowout. Started out a little weary and weepy and cloudy and dreary when it started, but shout out to Drake May for getting his first start. He completed 20 of 33 passes, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Looked like a rookie, but had some moments where he showed and flashed that He definitely has some ability and definitely some mobility, something that Jacoby Brissett did not have. I definitely can see the Patriots not winning a bunch of games right now, but they will show more fight with this kid being in there, and I thought that was great. But Houston is just flat out better. C.J. Stroud, fucking beast, 20 or 31, 20 completions or 31 attempts, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Just better football team. Better football team. Offensive, defensive, special teams wise, just better. But again, excited to see Drake May get in there. No more of that Jacoby Brissett experiment. So now Elliott Wolf and the gang in New England are going to have to rest on their laurels and hope that this kid blossoms. Because if he doesn't, that's Mac Jones, and then it'll be Drake May. So we'll see, but we'll see. This one was near and dear to my heart. I definitely wanted to touch on this game because I felt like if I didn't, I'd be doing the NFL and this show a disservice. Shout out to the Detroit Lions for that utter ass whooping, demolishing, just complete obliteration of the Dallas Cowboys. Shout out to them. Final score 47-9. Cowboys entering the bye week. The game was also on Jerry's birthday, so it was beautiful to see them get their ass whipped in front of Jerry. And Jerry have to witness that in front of the world. It was just poetic justice. There's nothing really to talk about in this game outside of just, Detroit running 8th grade, Pop Warner Little League plays and using it to effectiveness. Dallas's defense is atrocious. They have no running game. They have the worst running game in the NFL. I that's not hyperbole. That's an actual NFL statistical fact. Dak's pressing, but also he's playing like shit. Micah Parsons is not being in there. They got problems. They'll be all right because, again, they'll play some teams that's just inferior to them, so they'll figure it out. But with the way they're looking, especially like that, I mean, when you're giving up 480 plus yards of offense, 174 rushing yards, and 308 of them were passing yards, and it's at home. So it wasn't like this was a road game. This was in Dallas. Ever since that playoff game against Green Bay, the mystique has been gone. And the Lions, shout out to them, they just look legit. They look like the team that was contending last year to go to the Super Bowl, and they look like they'll be contending again this year. They never even punted in this fucking game. I mean, that just shows you how effective. They did whatever they wanted against Dallas. And in Dallas's offense, 9 points, 3 interceptions, over 3 in the red zone. Just fucking atrocious. So Dallas can't be considered legitimate. That argument is just null and void, and we have to really just stop bullshitting ourselves and telling ourselves that they are legitimate, because they're not. Especially when you're playing an upper echelon NFC team within your conference and you put up 9 points. I mean, you couldn't even score a damn touchdown. It took long 50-plus yard field goals for you to get on the board. So 0-3 in the red zone, and you had your quarterback turn the ball over multiple. And in one of them, red zone turnovers are a crux for any team, and let alone you put your team in that type of situation, it just breeds malcontent and discontent. And you see him and CD going back and forth. CD talking about giving the ball. How about you have your ass in camp and be healthy enough to get the ball? Because you haven't looked like the guy that's commanded that type of money either. You haven't looked that great. So it's interesting. Some of the other things I wanted to touch on too. One of the other games before I touch on some of the ancillary week 6 news. Now I'm just predominantly in week 6. Jets versus Bills, which was the Monday Night Football game. I mean, this pretty much came down to Jets offense not being able to finish drives because they're just a bad team who continues to inflict penalties on themselves and shoot themselves in the foot. Kept the game tight for a while. The game was 10-7, 10-13, kind of real tight throwback AFC East affair. But, you even saw a little flash of the old Aaron Rodgers with that Hail Mary to Alan Lazard before halftime, which kind of gave the Jets some life. But who the fuck am I kidding ourselves? I mean, the Bills despite the mishaps, methodical against the Jets. Jets offensive line, the Jets offense period wasn't finishing drives. Tyron Smith looked like his feet was in cement blocks. He was getting bodied by Espinosa, like getting bodied. It's not even a fucking joke. I used to play offensive line when I was a kid. You're getting your ass whipped like that, you get benched. That's how bad he played. And the Jets D has just been suspect. In that game, especially that night, they were getting tortured by Josh Allen. He picked whatever spot he wanted. They had no answer, and it was just shocking to see. It was shocking to see. You kind of thought they were a little bit more ready, but they weren't. Missed field goal opportunities by the Jets too. People blame it on the wind. What fucking ever. You're in a windy stadium. You know what it's hitting for. It cost some points. It cost some points and it cost some opportunities. And it was ultimately a sloppy game until the second quarter, so it wasn't anything to write home about. But this game, which was so funny because after this game, the Bills pulling out the victory. What's so amazing about it is both teams wound up pulling off trades for wide receivers because it was so obvious watching the game that both teams need a wide receiver. I'd be remiss, obviously you guys have seen, if you haven't seen the short already on the channel, I've mentioned the Jets received Davante Adams from the Raiders. They sent a conditional third-round pick to the Raiders for him. And like I said, I kind of knew right after that game, I said it in my comments, they definitely needed him. Alan Lazard had a lazy 100 yards. 50 was on that Hail Mary. The other 50 came just throughout the game. Garrett Wilson, he got his 100, but, he took some shots in that game. They need this guy. They need a guy like Tay there to help balance out the offense. And it'll definitely help open things up for Tyler Conklin, too. So it's great to see. The only problem, though, is I don't think Davante Adams can play defense. Defensive-wise, outside of Sauce Gardner, all their defensive backs fucking grab and hold. So I'm not sure how that's going to help them. Linebacker-wise, they've been inconsistent. Defensive line-wise, they played better, but they haven't really played as a whole within the past couple games, so it's going to be interesting. But the Bills, again, getting Amari Cooper, not a shock there. They've tried to sell that bill of goods that they didn't need anything after Stephon Diggs. They were going to go with youth. And we see now, obviously, 6-7 weeks into the season, they're pulling a trade off for a wide receiver, which is ironic because Amari Cooper coincided with him having one of the worst years of his career. But, keep in mind, guys, he's leaving Cleveland where they told him in the offseason where he did a soft holdout in the spring. He wasn't getting a contract extension. And then later on in the summer, they then say, hey, Brandon Ayuk, would you like to be a Cleveland Brown? Which means they just never had intention on paying Amari. And I get it. He's on the wrong side of 30. However, you don't think that a guy's going to want to play at a great level or play at a high level if, he can't really contend or play. It was just shocking. It was shocking for Cleveland to try to pull that off. But I think he's going to play great with Josh Allen. I think he's going to be a breath of fresh air for Josh Allen. So it remains to be seen. But both teams pulled off trades wide receivers, and I think it was great moves for both teams because they both needed them. Want to touch on briefly my Eagles fandom at first for a while wouldn't let me touch on it, but I'll touch on it now. As far as the Nick Sirianni arguing with the fans thing, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't really have much of a problem with it. Eagles fans talk shit. Now, I've been an Eagles fan since I was 3 years old. Eagles fans talk shit. Shout out to the Bird Gang. We're very unapologetic. We're very well educated about football. We know our team. We know most of us, not all of us. Most of us know to a great degree what we're talking about. So we're passionate, win or lose, and when we think the team should play better. I don't think it's cool when you got the team yelling fire Sirianni when the team's winning. It just breeds discontent. It just breeds negative energy that doesn't need to be there. Puts fires out that it creates fires that don't need to even be there. But nonetheless, he could have handled it better. I'm pretty sure Jeffrey Lurie and the team kind of got with him and made him apologize. That's why he apologized on the team's press conference Monday after the game. But nonetheless, I don't give a fuck. As long as he's winning games, I can give a fuck less. If he's popping shit to the fans and he's losing, then it's like, all right, you got to shut the fuck up. And it's probably a chance you're getting fired. But, I'm going to be honest with you guys. As an Eagles fan, Sirianni wins games. Sirianni's been winning. Can you win a Super Bowl? Can you get back to a Super Bowl and win it? I mean, I saw you. Your first year, you got knocked out in the playoffs. You got blown out by a veteran team. Okay. Second year, you had a good team. You got to a Super Bowl. You lost a close game to the Chiefs. Okay. Last year, you flamed out, bombed out in the playoffs. Can you get back to a Super Bowl and can you win it? That's my only question for Nick Sirianni. I know he can win games. Nick Sirianni has proven he can win games. He's found ways to win. I'm not concerned by any of that. So fuck him arguing with fans. Because I can tell you this much. It's definitely a bad look. No organization wants their coach arguing with their fans. I'm not retarded. But make no mistake about it. If he wins games and continues to win games, none of this shit matters. So that's about as much as I'm going to touch on that subject. Another subject I definitely touched on was speaking on somebody being irate after a game, and I have some of the comments here posted for you so you can see it. Titans wide receiver Calvin Ridley, who was acquired this offseason from the Jacksonville Jaguars, snapped the fuck out about not getting enough touches. And I actually had to do a double take when I read this because I didn't think it was realistic. Calvin Ridley had 8 targets and 0 catches, which when you really, really put that into an equation and think about how disastrous and how fucking foolish that is, that he had 8 targets and 0 catches. He's literally, ironically, I just mentioned this man's name, since 2015 NFL's Next Gen Stats, and I checked this, he's literally the only receiver second to Amari Cooper, ironically, since 2015 to be targeted more than 5 or 6 times and literally 8 times and not have any catches. I think Will Levis is a bum. I think he is a male guzzling goblin who is just horrible at the quarterback position. He's very inept. The Titans took a gamble. They lost. And they're just going to have to, tough it out this year. But they're definitely in the quarterback market. Make no mistake, they're in the quarterback market. If they got a shot against Shedeur Sanders, they need to look at it because this guy ain't it. Will Levis is definitely ass. He's not on my list of decent quarterbacks. He has that whole varsity blues, James Vanderbeek vibes going to him. Just sucks. Just really sucks. Not really a fan of his at all. Touching on before I end the show, touching on a couple injuries to round out the show. Deep threat for the New Orleans Saints, Rashid Shaheed is out for the season, undergoing meniscus surgery. He had a good punt return for a touchdown Sunday against the Buccaneers, but didn't really result in much after they got blown out 51-27. Derek Carr didn't play. Obviously, I have an update tonight with the Saints and Buccaneers game. Not Saints. I said Saints and Buccaneers. Saints and Buccaneers play Sunday. Broncos and Saints game tonight. I have an update to see if Derek Carr played or not. See how that looked out, how that turned out. Spencer Rattler did the best he could. I mean, ultimately rookie, but not having Rashid Shaheed is going to definitely hurt the Saints. And to think how the mighty have fallen, how they started out real hot and looked like one of the best teams in the league, especially if they beat the shit out of Dallas in week 2. But from week 3 on, it's been a struggle. And losing guys, especially guys like Shaheed, is definitely not going to help their cause. And rounding up the list, this is definitely not good news for the New York Giants. Going into a big game against Philadelphia, a big game against Philadelphia Eagles in New York Sunday with Saquon Barkley coming back. The Daniel Jones starting quarterback for the Giants will not have his starting left tackle, Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is out for the rest of the season after getting Liz Frank surgery, right foot surgery. Devastating injury for the Giants. Andrew Thomas was playing some of his best football, in my opinion, of his career, especially within the past couple of years. Definitely helping Daniel Jones be more comfortable back there throwing the ball. And this Philadelphia defense, coming off that game they just had against Cleveland, they're going to be confident. They're going to be confident going into this game and they can definitely get some sacks. So, not good for Daniel Jones, not good for the Giants, and definitely not good for Andrew Thomas. So, prayers up for him and Rashid Shaheed and those guys heal up. You hate to see guys out for the season, especially this early in the year, but it's a physical game, and this is what it demands, and it requires the most out of all of them. So, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I thank you, as always, for checking out. Like I said, this is the Week 5 and Week 6 recap. Kind of did like a nice little blend there. You can check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Substack. Like, share, and subscribe. Take care. I'll have pretty much an update reaction video for the Saints and Broncos game, the Sean Payton Bowl. So I'll definitely have an update for that. Check for that. I love you guys, as always, for checking out the show. Take care and enjoy the rest of your night. And stay tuned for more updates on the show over the course of the weekend.